The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Picture this. It's 48 BC, and the most powerful man in the world, Julius Caesar, sits in a palace in Alexandria, Egypt. He's just conquered the region, but local politics are in chaos. The young queen, Cleopatra, has been exiled by her own brother. Suddenly, a guard announces that a Greek merchant has arrived with a gift for Caesar. Intrigued, Caesar allows him to enter. The merchant struggles in, carrying a large rolled-up carpet on his shoulders. He sets it down, undoes the ropes, and with a single flick of his wrists, unfurls it across the floor. But this is no ordinary carpet. From within its folds rises a woman, young, beautiful, and half-clothed. It's Cleopatra herself. She'd smuggled herself into the city, past her brother's guards, risking everything for this one moment. Everyone in the room freezes in stunned silence. Not just at her beauty, but at the sheer audacity, the theatricality of her arrival. She didn't just enter a room. She created a moment that would echo through the next 2,000 years. Caesar, a man who had seen everything and conquered everyone, was absolutely spellbound. That very night, she became his lover, and in doing so, saved her kingdom. This wasn't just a clever trick, it was a masterclass in seduction. And here's what I want you to understand. This power, this ability to captivate and influence, isn't some mystical gift reserved for ancient queens or legendary lovers. It's a skill, it's an art form, and yes, it can be learned. We're diving into a book that's been called both dangerous and essential, The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Greene, who also wrote the monumental 48 Laws of Power, spent years studying the lives of history's greatest seducers, from Cleopatra and Casanova to John F. Kennedy and Josephine Bonaparte. What he discovered is fascinating. Seduction isn't about beauty, money, or romantic gestures. It's a game of psychology. It's about understanding the hidden desires, the unmet needs, and the secret weaknesses of others. In the next hour, I'm going to walk you through the core principles of this timeless art. And listen, this isn't just about romantic conquest. This is about persuasion in its highest form. It's about learning how to make people lower their defenses, how to draw them into your way of thinking, and how to make them want to do what you want them to do. Whether you're navigating your social life, your career, or your relationships, the lessons from this book will give you a profound advantage, because you'll finally understand the hidden language of human desire. So let's begin our journey into the subtle, elusive, and devastatingly effective form of power, the art of seduction. To understand the art of seduction, we have to go back to its origins. Robert Greene tells us that for thousands of years, power was mostly gained through brute force. Kings and emperors were merciless. In this world, no one was more powerless than women. They had no armies, no political standing, and were often treated as property. But they noticed a single weakness in men: their insatiable desire for pleasure, particularly for sex. A woman could toy with this desire, but it was temporary power. If she gave in, the man was back in control. If she refused, he could simply take what he wanted or look elsewhere. But a few brilliant women in history, women like Bathsheba, Helen of Troy, and the master of them all, Cleopatra, invented a new kind of power. They turned the dynamic on its head. They invented seduction. It began with appearances. They would craft their image, not just to be beautiful, but to be otherworldly, like a goddess come to life. They learned to tease the male imagination, showing only glimpses of flesh, hinting at something more than just sex. They hinted at the chance to possess a fantasy. Once they had a man's interest, they wouldn't surrender. Instead, they would lure him away from his world of war and politics and into their world, a world of luxury, spectacle, and pleasure. Cleopatra took Julius Caesar on a trip down the Nile, surrounding him with such exotic beauty that Rome seemed a distant, boring memory. And just when the man felt he was about to conquer her, she would turn cold, indifferent. This withdrawal, this sudden emotional distance, would confuse him. It would make him anxious. He had tasted a pleasure he'd never known, and now it was gone. He would be forced into pursuit, doing anything to win back her favor. In the process, the most powerful men in the world, kings, generals, emperors, would become weak, emotional, and utterly enslaved. This is the essence of seduction. It's not about force, but about psychology. It's not direct, but indirect, and cunning. It's about creating patterns of hope and despair, pleasure and pain, until the target willingly surrenders. Seduction is the female form of warfare, and it's the ultimate form of power because the victim becomes a willing participant. They fall in love not just with you, but with the intoxicating feeling you create. Over time, men began to adopt these feminine strategies. The great male seducers like Casanova and the Duc de Richelieu learned to dazzle with their appearance, to play the coquette, and they added a new masculine element to the game, seductive language. They discovered that words, when used correctly, could be a woman's greatest weakness. Today, this art has evolved. Force and brutality are discouraged in all areas of our lives. From politics to advertising, everything relies on persuasion, on a soft sell. John F. Kennedy didn't rule like a king. He seduced the masses with charisma, making them fall in love with an idea of America, an idea of himself. What all great seducers understand is that it's far more effective to create love than lust. A person in lust is hard to control and, once satisfied, may leave you. But a person in love is emotional, pliable, and easily led astray. The word seduction itself comes from Latin, meaning, quote, to lead astray. When you make someone fall in love, they surrender their will to you. And this power isn't a magical gift. It's a game of psychology that anyone can master. It requires one fundamental shift in your perspective. You must stop thinking about yourself and start looking at the world through the eyes of other people. Seducers are never self-absorbed. Their gaze is directed outward. When they meet someone, their first move is to get inside that person's skin, to see the world through their eyes. This isn't just about empathy. It's a strategic act. It allows them to gather valuable information, to learn what makes that person tick, what they lack, what they secretly desire. Armed with this knowledge, the seducer becomes a provider of pleasure. They understand that most people are weighed down by responsibilities and boredom. They're secretly dying for an escape, for adventure, for romance. A person who enters their life offering this cannot be resisted. This is why the first and most critical step in the entire process is to choose the right victim. You cannot seduce everyone. Happy, contented people are almost impossible to seduce because they have no void for you to fill. Your perfect target is someone who has an emptiness inside them, a lack. They're often isolated, unhappy, or bored. They yearn for something they cannot get on their own. Greene tells us there are 18 types of victims, each defined by what they're missing. There's the disappointed dreamer, who grew up with romantic fantasies from books and films, but found reality to be a crushing bore. Their relationships are dull. Their lives lack adventure. You can recognize them by their love for fantasy and their subtle air of disappointment. If you offer them a taste of the romance or adventure they crave, they'll follow you anywhere. But you must never let reality break the illusion. One moment of pettiness, and they're gone forever. Then there's the pampered royal. These are people who were spoiled as children. They were never taught to entertain themselves. Instead, they were surrounded by a parade of toys and pleasures. As adults, they're restless, moving from person to person, job to job, always searching for the next novelty to relieve their boredom. What they're really looking for is that parent figure who will spoil them all over again. To seduce this type, you must provide constant distraction and variety. Surround them with spectacle, new experiences, and endless pleasure. They'll grow dependent on you, but never talk about commitment. The hint of a settled life will make them flee in panic. You might also encounter the new prude. In the past, prudery was about sex. Today, it's about being overly concerned with correctness, political correctness, social fairness, good taste. The new prude is terrified of society's judgment. But deep down, they're intrigued by the forbidden, by transgressive pleasure. Their correctness is a defense against their own dark desires. To seduce them, you must be their opposite. Have a touch of the dangerous, the naughty. Give them a chance to criticize you, to try to reform you. This will draw them in. Once you get them to let go of their correctness, they'll be flooded with a passion that will overwhelm you both. The key is to look past the surface. A tough, cynical person may secretly pine for romance. A shy person may yearn to be the center of attention as a crushed star. An intellectual professor type may long to be overwhelmed by pure, unthinking physical pleasure. Your task is to identify this lack, this hidden desire. And the perfect victim isn't just someone who's vulnerable. They're also someone who stirs something in you. Perhaps they have a quality you lack and secretly envy, like an innocence you've long since lost. This genuine emotion you feel will make all of your seductive maneuvers seem more natural, more dynamic. It'll give you the energy for the perfect chase. Once you've chosen your victim, the seduction begins, but you cannot be direct. If you're too obvious early on, you'll raise a resistance that will never be lowered. Seduction must begin at an angle. This brings us to the second principle. Create a false sense of security by approaching indirectly. At first, there must be nothing of the seducer in your manner. You must appear as a friend or a neutral acquaintance. You haunt the periphery of their life. They see you in different places. You have chance encounters. This creates a sense of destiny, as if you were meant to meet. Nothing is more seductive than that. The great seducer, the Duc de Lauzun, used this method to conquer the Grande Mademoiselle, one of the most powerful and virtuous women in 17th century France. She knew his reputation as a Don Juan and was on her guard, so Lauzun approached her not as a suitor, but as a friend. He talked to her about poetry, history, and heroism, her favorite subjects. He never flirted, never made a move. She began to look forward to their conversations. And then a strange thought entered her mind. If this notorious lady's man was only interested in friendship, was she not attractive to him as a woman? Her vanity was pricked. Her feelings of friendship slowly turned into love. By the time he finally revealed his desire, she was the one who felt like she was in control. She believed she was the one initiating the romance. This is the power of the indirect approach. By becoming a friend first, you lower their defenses. You gather invaluable information about their weaknesses and desires. And when you finally make your move, it comes as a surprise. They're vulnerable because you've already conquered the gateway to their body, their mind. Once they're aware of you and vaguely intrigued, you need to deepen their interest before it fades. The key here is to send mixed signals. Most of us are too obvious. We're either nice or mean, intellectual or sensual. We're predictable. A seducer, however, is hard to figure out. They're a mystery. They're both tough and tender, spiritual and earthly, innocent and cunning. This mix of qualities suggests depth. It fascinates, even as it confuses. The famous Madame Récamier was a master of this. She had the face of an angel, a look of pure innocence that drew men to her. But then there would be a flirtatious glance, a moment of wild dancing, a sudden gaiety that hinted at a devilish side. Men were confused. Was she a saint or a she-devil? They couldn't figure her out, and this enigma made them obsessed. They had to know more. You must cultivate this air of mystery. If you have a sweet, innocent face, let out hints of something dark or cruel. If you're known for your intellect, show a spontaneous, intuitive side. Play with gender roles. The great Don Juans have always had a touch of feminine grace, and the most powerful courtesans a streak of masculine independence. Rudolph Valentino seduced millions of women by being both graceful and delicate, almost feminine, yet also hinting at a masculine cruelty that drove them wild. This ambiguity creates a space for the victim's imagination to work. They don't know who you are, so they begin to fill in the gaps with their own fantasies. They start to see what they want to see, and once their imagination is engaged, they're on the slippery slope of seduction. As you create this intriguing presence, you also need to make yourself seem valuable. People desire what other people desire. This is the law of social proof, and it leads to the next step. Appear to be an object of desire by creating triangles. Few are drawn to the person whom others ignore. We're social creatures. When we see someone surrounded by admirers, we automatically assume they must have something special. Their value increases in our eyes. You must create this aura of desirability. The legendary seductress Lou Andrea Salome was a master of this. She was rarely seen alone. When the philosopher Paul Rée fell for her, she immediately brought his friend, the great Friedrich Nietzsche, into their circle. The two men, who had been close friends, now found themselves rivals for her attention. Their desire for her intensified because they saw her desired by the other. This created a triangle of desire, with Salome at the center, holding all the power. You can create this effect by surrounding yourself with friends of the opposite sex. Let your target see you being admired. You can also talk about past lovers, hinting that you're still desired by them. This creates a reputation that precedes you. If many have succumbed to your charms, there must be a reason. Your target will feel a sense of vanity in winning you away from the crowd. They'll want to be the one to finally possess you. This also works by using contrast. The seducer Johannes, in Kierkegaard's The Seducer's Diary, encourages a dull, awkward suitor to court his target, Cordelia. After a few weeks of this man's boring company, Cordelia is so desperate for an escape that when the witty and mysterious Johannes finally makes his move, she's more than ready. Against the backdrop of the dull suitor, Johannes shines like a star. Once your victim is properly intrigued, their interest must be transformed into something stronger, desire. And desire is always born from a feeling of lack. So your next task is to create a need by stirring anxiety and discontent. A perfectly satisfied person cannot be seduced. You must instill a sense of tension and disharmony in their mind. You must make them feel that something is missing in their life. The writer D.H. Lawrence was a master of this. He would begin a relationship as a warm and attentive friend. Then, suddenly, he would turn critical. He would find his victim's weak spot, their deepest insecurity, and pick at it. He told one woman she wasn't spontaneous enough, another that she was too physically cold. His criticisms were often accurate, and they hit a nerve. This would throw his victims into a state of confusion and anxiety. They would feel a wound open up inside them. And then, just as suddenly, Lawrence would become his old charming self again. Now his victims saw him differently. They were weak and vulnerable, and he seemed so strong. They needed his approval, his validation. Their feelings of friendship would turn into an intense, almost desperate love. You don't have to be as brutal as Lawrence. You can stir these feelings more indirectly. Hint that their life is boring compared to the adventures you offer. Make them feel that they've strayed from the ideals of their youth. You're the one who can lead them back to that lost paradise. When you meet them, they should feel that their life is a little grayer, a little less exciting than it was before. This feeling of inadequacy you create gives you the space to insinuate yourself. You become the answer to their problems, the one who can fill their emptiness. Without this sense of need, there can be no seduction. Of course, if you're too obvious in creating this need, they'll see through you and become defensive. This is where you must master the art of insinuation. Insinuation is the supreme means of influencing people, because there's no known defense against it. It's the art of planting ideas in their minds, by dropping elusive hints that take root days later, as if they were their own thoughts. The great libertine novel No Tomorrow tells the story of a young man who's seduced by an older woman, Madame de T. She never states her desire directly. Instead, she uses a sub-language. In a carriage, she invites him to look out the window, forcing him to lean close to her. The carriage jolts, and she accidentally falls into his arms, then pulls away, rebuking him for being so forward. She has planted the seed of physical desire while maintaining her innocent reputation. Later, she talks about his current lover, hinting that the woman is unfaithful. Then she apologizes for saying such a thing, asking him to forget it. Of course he cannot. The idea is now in his mind. She has created a doubt, an anxiety, that will make him more vulnerable to her. You must create your own sub-language, bold statements followed by an apology, ambiguous comments, banal talk combined with an alluring glance. These things enter the target's unconscious and convey your real meaning. When you're not there, they'll brood over your words, trying to figure them out. They're slowly being drawn into your web, and they have no idea that you're the one in control. As you're planting these seeds, you must also lower their defenses by stroking their deep-rooted narcissism. You must enter their spirit. Most people are locked in their own worlds. They're stubborn and hard to persuade because they're obsessed with their own tastes and opinions. The way to lure them out of their shell is to become a mirror image of them. Play by their rules. Enjoy what they enjoy. Adapt yourself to their moods. The Indonesian president Sukarno was a notorious Don Juan. When he decided to seduce the American journalist Cindy Adams, he didn't use his usual aggressive tactics. Instead, he mirrored her. She was a brassy, straight-talking woman, so he let her dominate him. She complained about her hotel room, and he dutifully fixed it. She demanded a private plane, and he gave it to her. He adopted her casual air, her playful banter. He even dyed his hair the same color as hers. Adams was completely disarmed. She believed she was the one in control, that this powerful world leader was her puppet. She failed to realize that by entering her spirit, he had lowered her defenses and made her completely vulnerable to his influence. She wrote a glowing autobiography for him, presenting him to the world as a lovable, charming man, exactly what he wanted. When you mirror people, you validate them. You make them feel that you understand them, that you share their values. Their habitual insecurity vanishes. Hypnotized by their own reflection, they relax and open up. Once their inner wall has crumbled, you can slowly turn the dynamic around. They've been so busy looking at themselves in the mirror you provided that they haven't noticed you've been leading them all along. Now, it's their turn to enter your spirit. At this point, your victims are intrigued, their desire is growing, and their defenses are down. They're thinking about you constantly. It's time to lead them deeper into your seduction. It's time to create temptation. Like the serpent tempting Eve with the promise of forbidden knowledge, you must awaken a desire in your targets that they cannot control. You must find their great weakness, that fantasy that has yet to be realized, and hint that you're the one who can lead them toward it. The key is to keep it vague. You're not making a concrete promise, you're dangling a prize before their eyes. If they're bored with their provincial life, you represent the allure of the city, of exotic travel. If they're trapped in a passionless relationship, you're the embodiment of romance and adventure. The story of Don Juan de Todelas and Cristeta shows this perfectly. Cristeta had been one of his many forgotten conquests. To seduce him again, she had to create an irresistible temptation. She knew his weakness. He desired what he could not have. So she created the illusion that she was married and wealthy. She became forbidden fruit. The thought of possessing her again, of stealing her away from another man, was a temptation he could not resist. He pursued her relentlessly, and in doing so fell completely into her trap. You must create this inner conflict in your target. There's excitement and interest, but you're unavailable. There's a barrier, a social obstacle, a personal loyalty, a psychological gap. This tension is what makes the temptation so powerful. They're grasping for something just out of reach, like Tantalus in the Greek myth, forever reaching for the fruit that hangs just above his head. And the more they pursue you, the more they feel they're the aggressor, and the more your seduction is perfectly disguised. By now, your victims are thoroughly intrigued, and their desire for you is growing, but their attachment is still weak. At any moment, they could turn back. The goal of this next phase is to lead them so far astray that retreat is no longer possible. You begin by keeping them in suspense. What comes next? The moment people feel they know what to expect from you, the spell is broken. You've become predictable, and predictability is the death of seduction. You must create suspense, a calculated surprise. The nun Matilda M. was a master of this. She seduced the great Casanova, a man who thought he'd seen it all, by constantly surprising him. First, she was a nun who wanted an affair. Then, she was an elegant woman of the world. Then, she was a libertine, dressed as a man. Each surprise kept Casanova off balance and quivering with anticipation. He never knew what she would do next, and this mystery deepened her spell over him. You must do the same. If your targets think you're shy, surprise them with a bold action. If they think you're romantic, show a cynical side. These surprises reveal new layers to your character. They make your victims think about you constantly, trying to figure you out. Their curiosity will lead them deeper into your web. As you're creating this suspense, you must also intoxicate them with language. This is where you use the demonic power of words to sow confusion. The goal of seductive language is not to communicate truth, but to create an effect. You must say what people want to hear, flatter their egos, comfort their insecurities. Envelop them in promises of a glorious future. The French general Charles de Gaulle was a master of this. When he faced a rebellious crowd in Algeria, he didn't argue with them. He told them, "I have understood you." The crowd heard what they wanted to hear, that he was on their side, and they were pacified. He filled their ears with vague but emotional words about glory and destiny, and they were mesmerized. Your words should be like a drug, making people emotional and confused. Keep your language vague, and they'll fill in the gaps with their own fantasies. A letter is a powerful tool here. It allows you to create an idealized portrait of yourself. It creates a secret life between the two of you. The poet Baudelaire seduced Madame Sabatier almost entirely through letters, filling her mind with such poetic and worshipful language that by the time he finally met her in person, she was already hopelessly in love. But lofty words can be suspicious. Why are you trying so hard? This is why you must also pay attention to detail. The little things you do, the thoughtful gifts tailored just for them, the clothes you wear that you know they'll like, the subtle gestures that show you're paying attention, are often more charming and revealing than grand pronouncements. The Chinese Empress Dowager Cixi once had to seduce a group of Western ambassadors, wives who suspected her of murder. She didn't try to reason with them. Instead, she created a spectacle. She received them in the Forbidden City, surrounded by glittering objects, opulent decorations, and elaborate rituals. The women were so dazzled by the details, the porcelain teacups, the jewel-encrusted throne, the perfectly orchestrated processions, that their suspicions melted away. They were mesmerized by what they saw, and never noticed what the Empress was really up to. Details create a sense of reality. They also show that you've invested time and effort, which is immensely flattering. They engage all of the senses, creating an intoxicating, hypnotic effect that crowds out rational thought. As you're dazzling them with details, you must also maintain an air of mystery. This is where you poeticize your presence. Familiarity is the death of seduction. If your targets see you too often, if they feel they know everything about you, the fantasy will die. You must remain elusive. Alternate an exciting presence with a cool distance. When you're with them, be fully present, creating a memorable, exuberant moment. Then, disappear for a while. In your absence, they'll think of you. They'll begin to idealize you. This is what Stendhal called crystallization. Just as a branch left in a salt mine becomes covered in beautiful crystals, so too does your image become crystallized in the mind of your lover when you're not there. Eva Peron, or Evita, understood this instinctively. When she was with her lover, Juan Peron, she was intensely present, mirroring his every thought, catering to his every need. But her past was a mystery, and she maintained an elusive, star-like quality. When he was thrown in prison and separated from her, he found himself obsessed. The time apart allowed his imagination to work. He forgot her flaws and saw only a saint, a heroine. He poeticized her. You must associate yourself with poetic images. Create a shared experience, a concert, a walk in a beautiful place, so that when they think of you, they think of something elevated and beautiful. The more you figure in their minds, the more they'll envelop you in seductive fantasies. By now your targets are deeply under your spell, but they may still have some lingering suspicions. They may sense that you're maneuvering them. This is the moment to disarm through strategic weakness and vulnerability. The best way to cover your tracks is to make the other person feel superior and stronger. If you seem weak, vulnerable, and unable to control yourself, your actions will look more natural, less calculated. The great rake Valmont used this to seduce the virtuous Presidente de Tourvel. He knew she was on her guard against him, so he played the victim. He was overwhelmed by her goodness, he confessed. He was weak, emotional, and in desperate need of her guidance. He even cried. How could she suspect him of manipulation when he seemed so completely in her power? His apparent weakness disarmed her, and she fell into his trap, feeling a sense of pity and maternal protection that soon turned into love. A show of weakness, tears, shyness, a confession of some past sin, humanizes you. It lowers your target's defenses and makes them feel a comforting sense of superiority. They feel powerful in your presence, and that's an intoxicating feeling. You're playing the victim, but you're the one in control. At this point, you've stirred up all kinds of emotions in your victims. Their desire is strong, but it's still mixed with anxiety and doubt. Now, you must bring their fantasies to life. You must confuse desire and reality, the perfect illusion. People spend much of their lives daydreaming, imagining a future full of adventure, success, and romance. If you can create the illusion that through you, they can live out these dreams, you'll have them at your mercy. The story of Bernard Bourasque and Shipepou is a masterful example of this. Bourasque was a lonely Frenchman in communist China, dreaming of adventure and exotic romance. Pepou, a Chinese opera singer, embodied this fantasy. He slowly wove a story, a magnificent illusion, that he was actually a woman who'd been forced to live as a man. Bourasque wanted to believe it so badly that he ignored all the signs to the contrary. Pepou was giving him the adventure he craved, a story worthy of an opera. He was living his fantasy. The illusion was more real to him than reality itself. You must find your target's secret, unrealized dream. It could be a desire for adventure, a wish to be a great artist, a yearning for a lost childhood. Then, you must slowly and subtly create the scenario that brings this dream to life. The illusion shouldn't be too grand or theatrical. It should be rooted in reality, but with a touch of the strange, the uncanny. You want them to enter a kind of waking dream, where they can no longer tell the difference between what's real and what's fantasy. As you're creating this illusion, you must also slowly cut them off from their past life. You must isolate the victim. An isolated person is weak. Their friends and family are outside your spell and can be a dangerous voice of reason. You must subtly alienate your targets from their world. You can do this psychologically, by filling their minds so completely with thoughts of you that everything and everyone else fades into the background. Your constant, focused attention creates a kind of only you effect. You can also isolate them physically, take them on a journey away from their normal milieu. The great seducer Ali Khan was a master of this. He would whisk his victims off to his secluded chateau on the Riviera, or to some exotic locale where they felt lost and he was in complete control. Cut off from their support systems, in an unfamiliar place, they would cling to him like a child. As you isolate them, you're leading them into your world, your lair, where you set the rules. They're leaving one world behind and entering another. This creates a feeling of transgression, of shared adventure, which is intensely seductive. They're now completely vulnerable to your influence. Your victims are now weak, confused, and emotionally dependent on you. They're on the brink. This final phase of the seduction is about pushing them over the edge. You've been the aggressor for so long, they've become used to your constant attention. Now it's time to turn the tables. Give them space to fall. The pursuer is pursued. Take a step back. Show a touch of aloofness, a hint of boredom. Your withdrawal will trigger panic. Have they lost your interest? Was it something they did? They'll be filled with doubt and anxiety, and the only way to relieve this anxiety is to come after you, to possess you. The poet Baudelaire did this to Madame Sabatier. After years of anonymous, worshipful letters, he finally revealed his identity. She was ecstatic and invited him to her apartment, ready to consummate their love. But he was cold, distant, This threw her into a panic. She, who had always been the pursued, now became the pursuer. She flooded him with desperate letters, begging for his affection. She had fallen completely into his trap. Your retreat must be subtle. A sudden coldness, a slight shift in your interest, an unexpected absence. Let their imagination do the rest. They'll become the aggressor, and their desire for you, now active and full of their own energy, will become 10 times stronger. You've created the illusion that the seducer is being seduced. As they're pursuing you, their minds are now focused on one thing, possessing you physically. You must feed this desire, not with words, but with your body. It's time to use physical lures. An active mind is dangerous. If your targets see through your manipulations, they'll pull back. You must put their minds to sleep and awaken their senses. You must combine a cool, nonchalant air, which lowers their inhibitions, with a charged sexual presence that gets under their skin. The great courtesan La Belle Otero was a master of this. On stage, she was a whirlwind of sexual energy. In person, she was cooler. A man felt that his presence alone was what was heating her up. Her desire was read in her eyes, in the trembling of her voice, in the way her body reacted when he was near. Sexual desire is contagious. If you radiate heat, they'll catch it. Let your desire show in nonverbal cues, a heated glance, a voice that's slower and deeper, a chance brushing of the skin. These things bypass the conscious mind and go straight to the senses. As their senses come alive, their rational thoughts will melt away. They'll be lost in the moment, an intensified present where the body takes over. The moment has arrived. Your victim clearly desires you, but isn't ready to admit it openly, let alone act on it. They're hesitant, waiting for you to take the lead. This is when you must master the art of the bold move. Throw aside chivalry, kindness, and coquetry. Overwhelm them. Don't give them time to consider the consequences. A moment of hesitation on your part will signal that you're thinking of yourself, not that you're overwhelmed by their charms. The rake Valmont knew this. After months of patient, indirect seduction, he sensed the Présidente de Tourvel was ready. She was weak, confused, and more afraid of losing him than of the consequences of adultery. He created a final moment of tension, a game of push and pull, and then, when she grabbed his arm, he struck. He picked her up, carried her to the ottoman, and overwhelmed her with kisses. All her resistance gave way. After so much tension, the surrender was a great release. The bold move must seem to arise out of a sudden, uncontrollable passion. It should come as a surprise, but not too much of a surprise. You must learn to read the signs that they're ready, a look in the eye, a nervous mirroring of your gestures. Then, you go on the offensive. Seduction isn't egalitarian. One person must lead. The pleasure of the one who surrenders is often greater than that of the aggressor. You've succeeded. But danger follows in the aftermath of a successful seduction. This is where you must beware the after effects. After emotions have reached a pitch, they often swing in the opposite direction, toward disappointment, distrust, and boredom. The spell is broken. The fantasy gives way to reality. If you're to part, it must be done swiftly and cleanly. A long, drawn-out goodbye will only cause pain and resentment. The great courtesan Ninon de l'Enclos was a master of this. When she grew tired of a lover, she didn't complain or make excuses. She simply left. A quick separation is easier to get over. The victim can blame it on your fickle nature, and their vanity remains intact. If you're to stay in a relationship, you must fight against the creeping familiarity that will spoil the fantasy. you must start a second seduction. Never let the other person take you for granted. Use absence to make them miss you. Create conflict and pain so that the reconciliation is that much sweeter. The writer D.H. Lawrence kept his wife Frida in a constant state of tension, picking fights, taking her on arduous journeys, never letting her settle into a comfortable routine. The relationship never grew stale. Comfort and security are the death of seduction. You must constantly reseduce your partner, creating new fantasies, new adventures. The game must never end. And so, we see that seduction is a journey. It's a process of leading someone from their closed-off world into a realm of fantasy and pleasure. It begins with a spark of interest, fanned into the flame of desire. It moves through confusion and anxiety, pleasure and pain. It culminates in a surrender, a letting go. But it's a journey that requires art, patience, and a deep understanding of human nature. It requires you to be a psychologist, a strategist, an artist. And if you master this art, you'll hold in your hands the most powerful tool of influence that has ever been created. As we come to the end of our exploration of the art of seduction, it's easy to see why this book is so often misunderstood. On the surface, it can seem like a cold, manipulative playbook for heartless conquests. And in the wrong hands, it certainly could be. But to see it only that way is to miss the profound wisdom that lies at its core. What Robert Greene has really given us is a masterclass in applied psychology. At its heart, seduction is about empathy. It's about the radical act of stepping outside of your own ego and entering the world of another person. In our modern world, we're all so self-absorbed, so busy broadcasting our own thoughts and feelings, that we rarely take the time to truly see and understand the people around us. The seducer does the opposite. The seducer listens. The seducer observes. They pay attention to the subtle cues, the offhand comments, the unguarded moments that reveal what a person truly lacks, what they truly desire. And then, they become the one who can provide it. Is this manipulation? Yes, in a sense. But it's a manipulation that's rooted in giving pleasure. People aren't seduced because they're tricked or forced. They're seduced because they're given something they desperately want but cannot find in their everyday lives. A sense of adventure, a feeling of being understood, a release from the crushing boredom of routine. The victim of a seduction is almost always a willing victim. They're grateful for the fantasy, for the escape, for the feeling of being truly alive, even if it's only for a moment. The most powerful lesson in this book, for me, is the idea that true influence comes not from being loud, aggressive, or demanding, but from being indirect, patient, and attuned to others. It's the soft power of creating fascination. It's the art of making people come to you, of making them believe that your ideas are their own. This applies to every area of life. The leader who can create a sense of shared destiny, the marketer who can sell not a product but a feeling, the friend who can make you feel like the most interesting person in the world. These are all seducers. So how can you begin to apply these principles in your own life, in a way that's ethical and constructive? Here are a few simple actions to start with. First, for the next week, practice being a deep listener. In every conversation you have, resist the urge to talk about yourself. Instead, focus all of your attention on the other person. Ask them questions that get them to talk about their past, their dreams, their frustrations. Listen not just to their words, but to the emotions behind them. You'll be amazed at what people will reveal if you simply give them the space to do so. Second, practice the art of the indirect compliment. Instead of telling someone they're brilliant, find a way to show them. Quote something they said weeks ago, showing you were paying attention. Ask for their advice on a matter that you know is their area of expertise. This kind of validation is far more powerful than direct flattery. because it feels earned and sincere. And finally, identify your own seductive character type. Are you a natural with a childlike innocence, a rake with an infectious desire, a dandy with a mysterious ambiguity? We all have a latent seductive quality. The key is to recognize it, cultivate it, and amplify it. Seduction isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about becoming more of who you are, in a more strategic and artful way. That was a deep dive into The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. We've explored the grand strategies and the intricate psychology behind this powerful art form. But I'll be honest with you, a summary, no matter how detailed, can only be a map. The real journey happens when you explore the territory yourself. The true magic of a book like this is in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a single sentence resonates with you in a way you didn't expect, unlocking a new understanding of the people in your life and of yourself. This summary is your guide to decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've discussed today has sparked your curiosity or opened your mind to a new way of thinking about influence, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you navigate the world. You'll find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful ideas to you. Let's keep learning and growing together.